Transhumanism is a movement which advocates the use of emerging technologies to enhance and guide human evolution. The movement itself is public relations. It's a marketing campaign. Its job is to acclimate the public to ideas such as implantable microchips. Now, if you remember, not too long ago, even the existence of implantable microchips was a crazy idea. I mean, these things were unheard of. This is the realm of conspiracy theory. But now let's take a look at the scientists who are developing these technologies that the transhumanists so lovingly talk about.
In 2002, the implant that I had then was positioned in my nervous system here.
Alright, at this point we've accepted the fact that Dr. Warwick put an implant in himself back in 2002. Now let's move on to some more heavy stuff, like the relationship between artificial intelligence machines and humans. Now we all know what happened in the movie Terminator. How do we get around such a problem?
They say, well, perhaps we could avoid this issue by having human beings themselves become artworks. In practice, that would mean like adding components to your head, more chips on top of chips, sort of thing.
Now wait a minute, I didn't even want to get an implantable microchip in the first place. Now we're talking about brain chips. Putting a chip in my actual brain. You can't tell me that people are actually going to want to do this.
A lot of people who do want to upgrade themselves, no question about that. And there'll be commercial interests and political interests supporting those groups. There's a lot of money to be made here, a lot of power.
I'm not even satisfied with the power structures that are present in this world right now, let alone giving the power of my brain away to somebody. And did you notice the buzzword he used in there, upgrade? As if you're going to be better if you do this?
I mean, imagine you're a parent and your next door neighbour starts going cyborgy, right? Starts adding components, and then suddenly the person next door is capable of learning a human language in just like, in seconds.
And this, of course, is the old marketing trick of snob appeal. But this time, your neighbor hasn't bought a new riding mower. He's added a brain chip to his head which allows him to think in ways that you can't even imagine. He's become a super intelligent cyborg. At this point, transhumanism tries to sell you on the concept of abandoning humanity altogether. They want you to become what is known as a post-human. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to keep up in the new society.
But I think when implants become more acceptable, as they are becoming bit by bit, so such people, the humanists that want to stay human, the Terrans maybe, as Hugo would call them, I can't see them ultimately having much power, because at the end of the day, their intellectual capabilities will be so inferior to cyborgs, those that have implants and upgrades, that the cyborgs will be able to outthink the subspecies that still are human.
Ah, so humans are a subspecies now. Can anybody see where this is going? Perhaps you remember Adolf Hitler and his concept of the Übermensch, or the Superman. These guys have a serious God complex. They are sick individuals. But you are even sicker if you choose to follow them.
If in the 30s you met somebody, say you get some boffin, some big hit if you like, speaking on the radio in the 30s, saying pretty soon, 5-10 years into the future, it will be possible to build one bomb so powerful that it could wipe out a whole city. Well, most people would just laugh at it, think the guy's a nutcase. But the nuclear physicists of that time were starting to speculate about the possibility of a chain reaction.
Of course, all the simple-minded naysayers didn't even believe that it could be possible. But those brilliant scientists proved by the sheer power of the will that it could be done. And now, of course, we're being forced into the next step of this scientific evolutionary process, which ends up with a clash between Terrans, aka humans, and cyborgs / AI intelligence machines.
They're not just prepared to see like millions of people die, like in a conventional type war. They're prepared to risk the whole species dies out, billions of people. So that the Terrans can easily justify their actions, when push really comes to shove, as I see it, to just wipe them out.
So, as you can see, Dr. Degaris isn't too concerned with the complete destruction of humanity. In fact, he seems quite pleased with the idea. And who am I to question his opinion anyway? After all, he is an expert, and we're supposed to listen to experts. Let's hear more of his brilliant ideas and concepts.
So imagine a young woman, she's just given birth, and then she needs to make the decision. Is she going to have her baby modified? Is she going to turn that baby into a cyborg, or effectively an intellect? So say she decides to do that. So this, hypothetically, this grain of sand, in a sense, that's been nanoteched, is inserted into the human brain, that baby's brain, and it integrates itself into the brain. So that baby, in effect, is no longer human. So that woman, in a sense, has killed her baby. Killed in the sense the baby is no longer human. It's effectively an intellect. It's an intellect in human disguise.
Okay, first hydrogen bombs and now killing babies. This is the kind of expert I should be listening to. Now let's see what Dr. Warwick says about anybody who has the audacity to actually resist this.
So the future for an ordinary everyday human, I guess there'll be some sort of subspecies, just like we have cows now, so we'll have humans in the future. There'll be other creatures, other species, cyborgs, intelligent machines, that are the dominant life forms on Earth. And as a cyborg, if a human came to see me and it starts making silly noises, a bit like a cow does now. If a cow comes to me and says, moo, 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 I'm not going to say, yeah, that's a great idea, I'm going to do what you tell me. So it will be with a human. They'll come in and start making these silly noises that we call speech and human language and so on. And these trivial noises, I'm not going to do those silly things. Why should I? This creature's absolutely stupid in comparison to me.
And there you have the transhumanist sales pitch, brought to you, of course, by the experts. And if you didn't know, transhumanism is just the new face of eugenics, which you should look into. All this talk about super intelligence and how great it's going to be a cyborg is simply bait. This is an advertisement. Don't believe it for 1 second. This time, your brain is the product, and how can you possibly put a price on that? The fact of the matter is, you don't get to program the brain chip, so how do you know what it does? The general public hasn't been made aware of the transhumanist movement yet, but it's my contention that the mass marketing of this movement will happen in the near future. Consider this video a forewarning. The transhumanists also push the concept of downloading consciousness into a computer. This makes the concept of the movie The Matrix a reality. I'm not even going to try to explain the reasons why that's a bad idea. Let's just hear what Dr. Warwick has to say about it.
Then if a machine is passing down signals that keep you completely happy, then why not be part of the Matrix? I really do think Neo in the Matrix trying to destroy things, he's a bit of a party pooper, and life for humans in a Matrix could be really cool.
Hey there everyone, welcome back to Press for Truth TV. Today is Wednesday, August the 8th, 2012, and right now I'm currently uploading a video to my YouTube channel of an interview that I did last night with James Corbett of CorbettReport.com. And James has a regular radio broadcast every evening at 10 p.m. Eastern, and so he had me on the program last night for the full hour, and we talked about all sorts of different topics and good stuff. We had a good discussion there. So if you'd like to check out the interview, I'll put a link to that in the description so you can see it for yourself. And other than that, we'll move on to today's story, which, as you can see from the title, we're talking about bioelectrical implants and the evolution of so-called transhumanism. And that, basically in a nutshell, is this whole concept of man and machine becoming more intricately connected in the very near future. And we've obviously already seen some advancements in the medical communities with this type of a concept. For example, with pacemakers, electrical device that is implanted into the chest sends out electrical signals to regulate the heartbeat. So this certainly does have medical benefits to this technology, but also there are people out there, such as the military-industrial complex, who are very interested in this type of research because they've been dreaming for years now about creating a super soldier, somebody who would be bigger, stronger, faster, better eyesight, better hearing, and all kinds of things that they would like to see come out of this transhumanism movement and the mixing of man and machine. And I'll show you what Wikipedia's breakdown of what transhumanism is. Here's what they have to say about the movement. Transhumanism is an international intellectual and cultural movement that affirms the possibility and desirability of fundamentally transforming the human condition by developing and making widely available technologies to eliminate aging and to greatly enhance human intellectual, physical, and psychological capabilities. Transhumanist thinkers study the potential benefits and dangers of emerging technologies that could overcome fundamental human limitations. There's something of interest, fundamental human limitations. This is all starting to sound eerily familiar now with a group of men back in, I'd say the mid-1940s or so, who were very interested in eliminating unwanted traits in the human gene pool and creating a superhuman race of the future. And these men are highly involved with eugenics, so we're starting to see a bit of a bigger picture here that is starting to emerge in regards to the transhumanism movement. It goes on to say here, these emerging technologies that could overcome fundamental human limitations, as well as study the ethical matters involved in developing and using such technologies. They predict that human beings may eventually be able to transform themselves into beings with such greatly expanded abilities as to merit the label post-humanism. And so it's quite remarkable here in the 21st century that scientists and medical experts are researching these areas of merging man and machine and getting us more closely linked to create these so-called superhumans, and also to potentially deal with problems that humans have, diseases and things of that nature. Which brings me to an article that I'd like to refer you to from naturalnews.com that came out today, and the article is titled Big Pharma Shifting from Deadly Chemical Drugs to Bioelectric Implants. Not content simply drugging its millions of victims with mind-altering chemical and biological inputs, the pharmaceutical industry is now developing ways to literally transform the human brain into a drug industry-controlled biometric computer that will basically turn human beings into nothing more than mind-controlled robots. The Financial Times reports that GlaxoSmithKline, the drug behemoth recently forced to fork over the largest ever amount in fines for its massive criminal conduct, is leading the way in unveiling what the industry is now calling bioelectronics. The premise holds that certain diseases can be treated by injecting electronic devices within the body for the purpose of artificially controlling neural synapses and other activity. Moving beyond conventional drugs that interact biochemically with the body, Big Pharma will have built a big bioelectronics business that treats disease through electrical signaling in the brain and elsewhere, writes Clive Cookson for FT.com about the concept, which is expected to eventually replace many common drugs. Neurological problems from stroke and epilepsy to depression will be treated through electronical implants into the brain rather than pills or injections. Even diabetes and obesity will be attacked in ways that seem like science fiction today by sending electrical signals to malfunctioning cells. Rather than help the body naturally heal itself through proper nutrition, cleansing, and lifestyle, bioelectronics basically bypasses the body's own immune and healing systems and replaces them with remote-controlled computer chips that can be programmed and monitored by outside forces. It is the embodiment of the bionic man or cyborg concept, where human beings are taken over by computers and mind-controlled. Presented alongside glowing results from a few recent clinical trials showing how the technology can be used to potentially help tetraplegics and other seriously injured or paralyzed patients regain function, bioelectronics has the very real potential to be used for much more sinister purposes, like controlling thought patterns. Yes, researchers are already saying it can be used to treat depression, as well as individual eating habits and preferences. Ultimately, bioelectronics treats people in a purely mechanical way where subjective personal inputs that may not always be helpful are bypassed, wrote one commentator in response to the FT.com piece. How long before someone suggests serial criminals are fitted with the bioelectrical patches that stymie endorphins and reduce the excitement associated with criminal behavior? Or perhaps release a toxin that makes the person ill if they feel stimulated in the wrong way. So certainly very intriguing that here in the 21st century we are engaging in this kind of research and moving more closer to this brave new world type of scenario in the future where man can be very, very controlled. And so I personally, I took the red pill, so I've been unplugged from the Matrix, and I would like to remain that way. And so anyways, guys, I just wanted to bring that to your attention today. So I'll put a link to that article from naturalnews.com in the description if you'd like to check that out. And also from there, you can learn a little bit more about this whole concept of transhumanism that we are slowly moving towards here in the 21st century. And that's it for today, everyone. I want to thank you once again for tuning in, and I'll see you all right back here tomorrow at pressfortruth.tv.
Hello, I'm Gary Stearman. Welcome to another edition of Prophecy in the News. Today's guest, author, lecturer, publisher, Tom Horn. Stay with us. Well, it's always a pleasure to welcome Tom Horn back to Prophecy in the News. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Gary. Thanks for having me on again.
Hey, it's going to be good. We're going to be talking about several things today, but let's begin with the book. Beast Tech is the name of it. You collaborated with Terry Cook on this book. And Tom, there's something very serious. That is a very serious subject is being presented here in terms of how it might change all of our lives. I know when you write, when you speak, I think it's always with a sense that we're on the edge of something very big happening. It's not our imagination. Things really are changing. And the things that are mentioned in Beast Tech are kind of frightening.
Well, and of course, Terry Cook himself, he was a former California police officer. He was an investigator, a fraud investigator. So he was a great guy to get hooked up with because his formal training, teaches him how to pursue the evidence, pursue the information, make a case for or against it. Me, of course, I'm just a guy who is interested in prophecy, but I'm also interested in civil liberties. I always have been. And of course, Terry, me, and other thoughtful Americans have been concerned lately when you see like the NSA encroachments in and against our civil liberties and making the argument that they ought to have the right without a court order to be able to listen to our conversations and monitor our conversations. And so you have that kind of encroachment through the use of technology. The title Beast Tech, which implies there will be technology that also will be used by an end-time system. But then just this week, you have the Department of Homeland Security saying that they're now going to begin pushing the Real ID Act. You know, this was all the way back to 2005 it was enacted. But now they're going to require all of the states to meet some federalized standard for driver's license, which would many believe become kind of a de facto national ID, but it's also going to include some kind of biometric signature. So now we're talking about what? An eye scan, retinal scan, or a fingerprint or something like that.
Yeah, and they're now talking about hemispheric compatibility, meaning your driver's license would be good in the entire Western Hemisphere. That would be Canada, United States, Mexico, South America. And my reaction to that was, well, if it's hemisphere compatible, it's globally compatible.
Sure.
So that's what's coming.
Right. Well, actually, the whole idea that you're going to have an international kind of identification system, it doesn't take much of a student of Bible prophecy to have red flags going up, right?
Yeah.
But it definitely, and in a very humanistic sense, you can almost see the need for it. That eventually that is going to be the kind of technology that's going to develop. In our government right now, you have stalled immigration reform. But now that they've, settled some of their budget issues, Obama is saying that we're going to get back on immigration reform. But some of the versions of immigration reform, some people fear, have in it, again, a national form of identification that would include biometrics. And it would, again, in a very humanistic sense, be required, because you somehow need to be able to qualify who can enter the country and work and hold down jobs and own real estate and whatever legally against those who can't.
Let's talk about biometrics. You use that term, and we all watch television from time to time. We watch the detective shows maybe, and what has become big in the detective shows is get a DNA sample. In other words, you go to a crime scene, if somebody has touched something, or if some bodily fluid or perspiration has touched something, presto, they've got your DNA. And they can identify you as an individual by name anywhere you are on planet Earth. And that's one aspect of biometrics. But another aspect of biometrics is control of the population.
Right.
And let's go into some of the darker parts of that.
Well, Gary, for instance, coming to market this year, 2014, is the new flexible tattoos that you've seen being illustrated. Now, you were one of the first guys to talk about this several years ago. You did a show talking about the invention of these flexible tattoos. But now they're becoming very sophisticated. One of the ones that's out there is called MC10 that everybody's talking about right now. MC stands for Microsoft Corporation. So you have very giant corporations that are investing in this technology. It appears very simple. You put this, it's a flexible circuitry is what it is. It goes on your arm or your hand or wherever they're going to eventually put this, and it is powered by the heat from your body. If people want to go to the website for that book, beast-technology.com, there's videos over there where you can see this technology being illustrated. And one of them you'll see the former director of DARPA, a woman by the name of Regina Dugan, and she's got one on her arm. And she's talking about how this thing's wonderful, everybody's going to want it. It gives you superpowers, she says, because now, as you walk into a federal building, you don't need to present any kind of identification. This thing is interacting wirelessly with their systems. When you walk through that door, you're on the screen. It knows who you are. It's already authenticated you. It's partly using biometric retinal scans or, again, fingerprints or blood samples or whatever's been taken in the past.
Wow.
Well, the same thing, let's say Regina Dugan is in a car accident. She's unconscious. She's rushed to a hospital. She's pulled into the hospital. They scan the thing. They've got all of her health information. They've got everything about her. It's wonderful technology, right? She's not even conscious, but we've got all of the permission papers. Everything is on file. Again, you walk into a bank. You don't have to pull out your identification. Now you're banking. You're doing transactions. Another video over there is IBM. This one will scare you because it shows this guy in a store. It looks like he's a thief, right? And he's grabbing stuff and he's shoving it into his coat and whatever. And he goes walking out of the store without ever stopping at a register. But as he walks out, bingo, Everything is billed. All of it went
Yeah.
into the system. He himself, his bank has the transactions already happened. It's been taken off of his credit card. And IBM is celebrating what a wonderful world of tomorrow we're going to have. Well, I guess in some ways maybe, but what concerns us is the book of Revelation and the book of prophecy, and how we know that there is a system that is coming without which nobody will be allowed to buy or sell. So now we're talking, right? Transactions, banking, all of this kind of thing, but it won't happen unless you've received a mark. Well, I should quickly say, there's another piece of technology that's coming to the market in 2014, and this is called the Proteus digital pill. The company is Proteus Digital Health. They're one of the leading companies, and this is an edible microchip. So you get up every morning when you're taking your vitamins, you swallow your Proteus digital pill. Your stomach acids not only eat away the outside covering, but also power the digital pill, and it does everything that the flexible tattoo can do. Now you can bank, you're authenticated is the term they use now. They don't like to use that word identification. You are authenticated. For
Gives
who
you a little prestige.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, isn't that the way? That's called propaganda. You give something a pleasant name, and you can do anything.
Well, and speaking of names, though, why name it Proteus? One of the things that I found, and this is astonishing to me, I found that fully about 35% of the leading biometric companies out there right now are naming themselves after ancient deities. Proteus, of course, was a shapeshifter that lived in the sea. But if you study the mythology around Proteus, he also had a talent. He could confuse the human mind, and if he took into a human form, he could mutate the living host. Now, does it make you feel comfortable to know that a company that's creating this technology has named itself after what I, as a conservative Christian, would call a demonic entity that can mutate its host and confuse the human mind?
Well, Tom, that's all coincidence.
It is, and it's an amazing coincidence. Another one is named Kronos. Kronos, the god to whom human sacrifices had to be made. So very astonishing to me that these companies would be picking these names like that. It's a little bit disturbing.
And I'm kidding when I say it's coincidence, because it's not. These things are very carefully planned out. There are committees in large corporations that have their basic responsibility is taxonomy, that is giving things good, workable, viable, meaningful names. So somebody thought about Proteus before it was named.
Right. Well, in any case, that's a little bit of a side note, but it's a little bit of a disturbing side note, and you sometimes wish you could be a fly on the wall, right, in some of those conversations. Yeah. But at a minimum, it might also imply that even if they themselves mean nothing negative by those names and titles, maybe there is something operating that they don't understand. Maybe there's a spiritual influence there that's been around for a very long time.
Perhaps the most quoted scripture today is in Matthew 24:37. But as the days of Noah were, so shall it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. In other words, go back and look at what was happening in Noah's day when God had to destroy the world. That's how bad it got. And what was happening then, and read Jude, read 2 Peter, there was an angelic encroachment into the affairs of men. And those angels were the people we now call Apollo, Proteus, Kronos, Zeus. All of those ancient mythological names are perhaps not as mythological as we'd like to think. And they are reasserting themselves in our era, just as was prophesied. And a lot of people, Tom, have said that the technology we have today is technology that was illegally obtained through trafficking with alien forces, which sounds a little bizarre, but it's been documented in a number of books. That is to say, the creatures that are called alien today, that seem to be running around just behind the scenes. There has not been a full disclosure yet. People are waiting for that. But a lot of people, and not just people who study Bible prophecy, I'm talking about secular people now, are saying that there has been a trafficking going on between human agencies and aliens from behind the scenes. That's exactly what was happening prior to the flood in the days of Noah. So this beast tech you're talking about may be an illegal form of technology obtained from creatures on high, shall we say, the trafficking between human and alien entities. And they would have a common interest, power and control, just as they did when they came before, back in the days of Noah.
And there's also some similarities in the sense that when you look at a great deal of this technology, Sharon Gilbert, I like to give her credit. She has spoke at the Prophecy in the News conference, and Sharon is qualified to talk about how, for instance, a living biochip would have the capacity to actually make RNN or RNA, whatever they call it, changes, genetic modifications to the body. You might have noticed where recently DARPA has been advertising for the creation of a 47th chromosome. You might have saw the headlines, but you can still go to DARPA's website and look at their advertisement, and when you read what it is they're trying to accomplish, they want a way to be able to jack in to the human genetic makeup very quickly. Now, this would, from their point of view, this would have to do with biological warfare. You have soldiers on the field, all of a sudden a biological agent is put on, and how can you rapidly create some way to defend them? Well, this 47th chromosome would somehow give them this method. Is this wireless technology? Who knows? Because it hasn't yet been invented.
But if you gave somebody another chromosome, would they be human?
Well, they wouldn't be human as they were made by God. And there again, whether you're talking about a biochip that can change your genetic makeup, whether you're talking about a smart vaccine that would actually alter your genetic makeup, and then using these to also both control and create identity systems, does smack of what you're talking about, the days of Noah. Because once before there was a time when intelligence said, we can improve mankind. We can make them better than the version God made. But they had a reason. They wanted to extend themselves into those newly formed bodies. They wanted to leave their plane of existence and come down to the earth. This come under great judgment from God. Peter talks about it in the New Testament. John talks about it in the New Testament. There are apocryphal books of that era that record what was going on the earth. But this came under great and immediate judgment from Almighty God.
Now, if you're talking about this kind of technology, and of course the name of the book is Beast Tech, you're talking about an interactive system. Usually we talk about, say, a mark, something like a tattoo that you would glue to your arm or that would be invisibly applied to the back of your hand or your forehead or whatever. You're thinking of just a tattoo or a transmitter. But we're talking about something more than that. We're talking about an interactive mark that would actually change who you are.
It would actually change who you are. It would integrate with your system. Like a virus, if a person wants to think of it that way, but a smart virus, one that's been engineered to accomplish a particular task. So It's going to reform, it's going to alter your genetic makeup, and if it altered you sufficiently. So for those people that watch this show that are scientifically minded, I'm not talking about what is called mutagenic effects, where you're living out here, maybe you're exposed to radiation and it mutates certain cells. I'm not talking about that. This literally is designed to permanently alter your genetic makeup sufficiently enough that in the purest sense of the word, you are no longer human. Now, some people today believe that that might be the way that the mark of the beast, once received, alters people in such a way that they can no longer be redeemed. The book of Revelation seems to speak of that when it says that whosoever receives the mark of the beast, they shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture out of the cup of his indignation. It just goes on and on forever, right? Yeah. What could you do to a human for which they can find no redemption unless they're no longer human? And again, this goes back to that ancient story, because recall, according to some of the extra biblical texts, the book of Enoch in particular, which is still included in some people's, the Orthodox versions of the Bible and whatever, what did the watchers do? When God put a judgment on their creation, the Nephilim, the watchers, according to Enoch, went back and they pleaded with God for the salvation of their creation, the Nephilim. but it says there was no salvation for
Right.
them. They cannot be redeemed. So that mutated form, even though it possessed a certain level of human original genetic material, wasn't human and could not be saved.
Well, I think I know what one of the big topics is going to be at our late March Prophecy Summit in Orlando. Talking with Tom, this is one of the hottest topics you can possibly imagine. And by the way, I hope you join us there. Gary Stearman with a word about the upcoming Orlando Prophecy Summit, March 28th through 30th. It's going to be fabulous, Bob.
It's going to be the Prophecy Conference for the Ages, 24 speakers in sunny Orlando, Florida. The sunshine, the beaches, Disney World, Universal Studios, the Holy Land theme park, and 24 incredible speakers.
Like Chuck Missler, Bill Salas, L.A. Marzulli, and, by the way, Mark Biltz.
Don't forget Mark Biltz. 2 weeks before the blood moons hit Israel, Mark Biltz is going to be speaking at our conference. L.A. Marzulli, fresh off his trip to Peru, his hunt for the skulls and the skeletons of the Nephilim. It's going to be fabulous.
Bob, for our viewers in the southeastern United States, this is a one-day drive to a beautiful hotel, and we're going to have the most fabulous get-together you can possibly imagine. Be with us. Call the 800 number right now, 1-800-475-1111. We'll see you there. Tom, as I'm listening to you, what I'm hearing is the mark of the beast, which everybody's talked about now for decades, if not centuries. The mark of the beast actually has the potential of altering who you are as an individual, which would account for the scripture that says that once you receive the mark, it's all over for you. In other words, there's no salvation.
I want to say, too, in my opinion, it is very dangerous for anybody out there to be saying that people could receive the mark of the beast and still go to heaven. Here's primarily why I think that is very, very dangerous. I think that once a person has received the mark of the beast, they won't ever want to be redeemed. I think that it will change their brain chemistry. It'll change them in such a way that, again, go back to the original story. The Watchers sought God for the redemption of their children. There is no record that any of the Nephilim ever tried to repent. Ever tried.
That's true.
It wasn't them, it was their parentage, the fallen angels. So imagine now if something is created that so alters humans, they wouldn't even ask. And there's nothing by the way, there's nothing in the New Testament that tells us those who receive the mark of the beast are going to be crying out, please save me.
And, one of the names of the Nephilim is the Rephaim, which is just an alternate name for basically a genetic mutant. And Isaiah 26 says, they are dead, they shall not arise. In other words, there's no redemption for these genetically altered individuals.
Exactly right. Now, another thing people are saying is, well, then, if this thing comes along, I just won't accept it. If the government came along, let's say, and we came up with our own version of a Proteus digital pill or our own version of a chimeric vaccine, and for the sake of the good of all the world, you're going to have to receive this thing, and it's the mark of the beast, and people say, well, then I just won't take it. But there's something, I think, that is intriguing about the way the book of Revelation describes the kingdom of Antichrist when it says, he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. How does he do that? How does he cause all? In this program today, you're going to be telling people how they can get free or in some package deal a 3-hour presentation that Steve Quayle and I, it's just under 3 hours actually, Steve Quayle and I made not long ago. It's been a very, very well received and hot, one of the most listened to radio shows ever.
And I'm holding it right here. It's a 3-hour CD-ROM, which we'll mention later. Conversation between Tom Horn and Steve Quayle. That has to be exciting. And I haven't heard this, but believe me, it's on my schedule.
Well, it's been one of the top programs on the radio ever since we did it. But the title of it is Trigger Event. And I took that title from this idea that the Antichrist is going to trigger something. He's going to do something that is then going to cause all. One, very quickly if I can, one of the scenarios, for instance, on that 3-hour discussion is we talk about a pandemic, how that the World Health Organization, other laboratories in the world right now are very concerned that we could suddenly have a pandemic, a bird flu type virus that somehow migrates into the human population. Just this week were the first 2 cases of the bird flu transmitting from human to human. And this is one of the things the science community has been very concerned about.
Yes.
When you see that, that's a giant red flag,
It
right?
is.
Okay, but let's just imagine, in as fewest words as Tom Horn can possibly muster, that suddenly a new Black Death arises.
Yeah.
A pandemic.
Right.
And it is so viral that within just a few months, you've got hundreds of thousands of people around the world that are either dead or they are dying. Now, we all know that an international cry would go up from the earth, from all over the earth, for a cure, for all of the great minds of the world to put their minds together and come up with a cure before this thing basically obliterates population Earth. And then all of a sudden, a government, maybe the United States, comes forward and they say, we have a cure. Because this is a flu that migrated from animals to human, we have a chimeric vaccine. It is made up of both human and animal genetic material. We've created a vaccine around it. Now, it will cure you of this disease. However, it will also permanently alter your genetic makeup. You will no longer be human, but if you don't take it, you're dead,
You're dead.
in 10 days from now.
Wow.
So suddenly you have a scenario in which a trigger event sets in motion. You're not going to have just this blasé, passive, all baloney, I'm not going to take it. Not when you're looking into the eyes of your dying children, the eyes of your dying wife, or you yourself are dying. You've got to make a decision and fast.
You know, I'm thinking of the pharmaceutical ads I'm seeing on TV today. They tell you about this marvelous new pharmaceutical and how wonderful it is, and people are running around and smiling, and it's a beautiful day. And meanwhile, a voice in the background reads off a list of side effects, including sudden death.
Right.
And you say, wow, why would I ever take that? But you're talking about side effects, quote unquote, from something that has a purpose. What a marvelous technique that would be to introduce a global change into society. You need to take this, it's good. Let's not talk about the side effects. Let's not talk about any of the other things that it will do to you.
Well, furthermore, Gary, this technology, when you look at how they would verify whether a person had received this chimeric vaccine, they scan the retina of your eye or the blood in the palm of your hand, and they can see the traces of whether or not you have received this chimeric vaccine. So in your head and hand, do you have the vaccine? If you don't, you're quarantined because you're a danger to the human population and you're simply going to die. So that's one of the numerous trigger events that Steve Quayle and I spent 3 hours discussing. The Proteus digital health technology, MC10, other technology like that is in this book. We also talk about transhumanism and how we're entering now into what is called the hybrid age, a human enhancement era in which everything from super soldiers to all this glorious, wonderful technology. I would have to say that I do believe there is some good things that are going to come out of biotech. And I'm not a technophobe. I'm not afraid of technology.
Right.
But when it's being combined with these intrusive, civil liberty stomping, then other bells start going off.
The hidden agenda, so-called. Well, as always, when we talk with Tom Horn, we need 3 hours. We only have 30 minutes. The book is Beast Tech, and I'm going to offer this book to you as part of a package, which we're calling the Mark of the Beast package. We talked for a moment about the Tom Horn, Steve Quayle interview, 3 hours, CD-ROM. Listen to it in your automotive CD player. We have here the secret Vatican Alien Antichrist connection. Now, this is a DVD, right?
It is. It's a little over 1 hour. That is the presentation that I made just a few weeks ago at the Strategic Perspectives Conference in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. A very large audience. They must have liked it because they gave me a standing ovation, right? So that was a little...
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, I've heard you speak, and it's always worth a standing ovation. The book is Beast Tech. We've talked about the CD-ROM, the DVD, for $17.95. It's a terrific package. We're calling it the Mark of the Beast package, and for a limited time, absolutely free, we're going to include Tom's great book, Petrus Romanus, absolutely free. This would be about an $80 value. For $17.95, the Mark of the Beast package. If you want to know more about what you heard Tom talking about in abbreviated fashion, Beast Tech is the book for you. The Steve Quayle conversation is worth the price of admission as far as I'm concerned. Having talked with Steve myself, the man bubbles over with information, right?
I love doing radio with Steve Quayle. In fact, I'm down to almost the only guy I want to do radio with is Steve Quayle.
Remember, the Mark of the Beast package, you've got the 800 number on your screen. And Tom, we're fresh out of time. It's always such a pleasure talking with you because you and I are on the same wavelength as followers of the Lord Jesus Christ. He's our only hope. You have not received salvation through the finished work of the Lord Jesus Christ. His shed blood is redemptive power. It's your only hope for eternal life. And I just want to leave you with that thought. I know you agree, right?
Absolutely, Gary. Thanks for having me on the program
Tom,
again.
Thanks for being here. And, by the way, keep looking up, everybody. Prophecy in the News is a viewer-supported program made possible by our many friends around the world. Be sure you tune in every day for breaking news and our daily prophetic news updates at prophecyinthenews.com or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/prophecyinthenews.
So pain management. Have you ever heard of Lamont's class? Like for pregnant ladies? So the breathing technique, it's got a very specific purpose. When they're going like that, it's not because of the breathing. What they're trying to do is make the brain focus on a rhythm, right? Timing and keeping that timing. So what they do is they focus on a point anywhere. Just focus your eyes on a point, and you start breathing in a very deliberate rhythm. So you're like, it's in, out, and so that process of focusing on that breathing will alleviate some of the pain. While your brain's busy, basically, you're overloading CPU. So you can try to do that, or you can just grin and bear it or whatever. Yeah. So we're gonna get rid of the animal chip. Oh, they don't preload these ones. That's great. Oh no, that is it. So that's the chip with the biobond coating. It's white coating. So that coating is what the body grows into and locks in place. So we'll get rid of that. Now this has got isopropyl alcohol, so that's going to be quite stingy. Alright. So, get that ready. Okay, so that's going to be good. So basically we're going to look for a place right in between. So you've got a nice squishy area there, which is great. So we're basically just going to pinch up and go in, check, and then I'm going to press and pull out, and then I'm going to give you the gauze and just put pressure. Oh, of course, it's brand new. I'm going to use this filter. Right.
Woo!
That wasn't too bad. Yeah. Okay, good. So, let's stick the Band-Aid on here. Okay.
That was pretty exciting.
A little bit of blood. So go ahead and just keep pressure there.
We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.